Hello, everybody. I hope that you are well. I am coming to you from my yoga retreat in India. It's been going well so far. Today, I learned how to touch my toes, which will certainly make tying my shoelaces a lot easier. So, I'm sure there's so much more to come in that respect, and I'm really looking forward to continuing with my journey. And talking about journeys, I'm here today to start another journey, which is my exploration of the TOK May 2026 essay titles. And I'm glad that I am on that journey with yourselves. Today, I want to talk a little bit about essay title number one, which is in the production of knowledge, does it matter that observation is an essential but flawed tool? Discuss with reference to the natural sciences and one other AOK. Well, to begin, I think that there are two big assumptions in this essay title. The first assumption is that observation is indeed essential. And I think we could tie that to the philosopher, the theorist John Locke, and his idea of empiricism. He argued that we are all born with a state of tabula rasa, blank slate, and it's through our observations, our experiences, that we then develop knowledge. The prompt also assumes something else. It assumes that not only is observation essential, it is also flawed. And I think that is somewhat obvious, because at the end of the day, we only have a limited number of senses. Even when we are using something like our sight, what do we choose to look at? When do we choose to look at it? So even though our senses are quite good, they are limited, and we can't use them all at all times in all possible ways. So yeah, definitely our observations are limited. So those two things are obvious. However, that is not really the point of this prompt. The point of the prompt is that it's asking us, does it matter? So we have to take it for granted that our observations are essential but they're flawed. We need to take that for granted. We need to accept it. But does it actually matter? That's what the question is asking us to answer. And with that in mind, I think there are two routes you could go down. You could say yes, or you could say no. First of all, in terms of yes, you could say that yes, it does matter that our observations are flawed, because flawed observations ultimately lead to flawed knowledge, which could have significant practical implications. Just think about medicine, for example. If we observe things incorrectly and then we develop medicines in the wrong way, or we administer the incorrect medicine, that could actually be a matter of life and death. And also you could say that, without flawless observations, we fail to appreciate the true beauty of life in all of its beautiful, wonderful forms. And this reminds me a bit of the movie Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, where Bruce Lee is talking to his master, and his master points up to the sky and says, "What do you see?" And Bruce Lee is looking at the finger, and he says, "Don't look at the finger, because if you focus on the finger, you miss the moon and all of its heavenly glory." That is one issue that we have with our observations. Sometimes we focus on one thing, but we miss the bigger picture. Also, we need to think about the other side of the argument, which is no, maybe it doesn't matter that our observations are flawed. Because, you could say that if our observations are flawed, we will correct them, and the truth will ultimately prevail. If not now, it'll certainly happen in the future. Not everything needs to happen right here, right now. And, just think about things like, observation, looking for things in natural sciences. Obviously, our eye the ability of our eye is limited, but with the advent of technology like the microscope and then the digital microscope, we've been able to enhance that observation. And over time, our observation gets better, and that leads to better knowledge. So things will eventually work out one way or another. And then, taking it down a slightly different route, you could say that if observations are flawed, that means we would not be able to observe flawed knowledge anyway, because we wouldn't be able to observe and say whether something is right or wrong. In that sense, we are all just walking around oblivious, and we wouldn't even know what an alternative world would look like. So you could say it doesn't matter really, because look, we're all just floating around, and maybe this is the best of all possible worlds. I think that was Leibniz who argued that. So even if our senses are flawed, if our observation is flawed, we wouldn't be able to notice it because our observations are flawed, and maybe things aren't too terrible. Also, you could say that maybe our observations are flawed for a reason, and you could check out a TED talk by Donald Hoffman. Something about do we perceive reality? I think is the name of the talk, and he talks about how maybe our senses, our abilities to observe, are flawed, and they're flawed for a reason. Because if they were flawless, we would simply not be able to comprehend what is going on in this vast universe of ours. So we've created or we've developed flawed senses because it allows us to cope with reality, and he sees this as all part of the evolutionary process, and it's our way of surviving. So you could check that out, Donald Hoffman. You need to think about areas of knowledge. So natural sciences, you've got to talk about that, and I think it's obvious because observation is crucial to the natural sciences. Think about your scientific method, which starts with observation, by the way. Human sciences, well, I think case studies could be quite interesting here because they're all about observation. Art, I mentioned a little bit earlier, or did I really? I talked about appreciation. But just come on, think of it like a painting. If you're only looking at one corner and you're missing the rest of the painting, well, you're missing the whole picture. If you don't know, if you only watch one part of the film, or you only read one page of a book, you're not understanding, you're not appreciating the whole thing. Also, what about history? That's an interesting one, because in history, if you think about it, we're not actually actively observing anything. Ultimately, we are just relying on other people's observations from the past, about the past. So I think there are some interesting things you could do with that. And then maths, come on, who cares about maths? I don't really have anything for this. I'm meant to be on holiday, so I'm not going to stretch my brain that much. I'm not going to worry over maths until I need to, which is the one about Pythagoras, I think. Well, actually, no, we don't need to talk about maths for Pythagoras. Anyway, look, I'm going down strange little road there. Forget what I said. I just haven't really got any ideas about maths, but the mathematicians amongst you might have some better ideas. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about essay title number 1. If this is the essay title for you, good luck. I wish you all the best. Take care and see you soon. Bye.